and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News. Meet the candidate. We are here today with Susan Henderson Utis. Susan Henderson lives in Middletown with her husband Andrey and their two children, Yulia, who attends Indian Lane Elementary School, and Mark, who attends Elwyn Development Center. Susan is committed to helping children and families. This August, she will graduate with a Master's of Arts in Education from Villanova University. Previously, she chaired the Media Youth Aid Panel and volunteered as a court-appointed special advocate for abused and neglected children. She is a licensed attorney. She has worked with the Chester Housing Authority, mediated with and conducted conflict resolution training for the Center for Resolutions, and represented indigent clients before the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. She is on the Delaware County Women's Commission and was president for her Homeowners Association. Susan, thanks for joining us today. Forgive me for not shaking your hand, as you know I have a cold.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You've been practicing law for 11 years in school, and now you're again studying for a master's in education. What do you like about teaching?
I love teaching. It was a decision, I honestly thought for a number of years, eventually I want to become a teacher. I've always been interested in it, I've always wanted to do it. And like any good partner, my husband after a while was like, why are you waiting? Why not do this? And he was quite right. So I decided about a year ago, I'm going to Villanova. They have a fast track program where you can get your Master's of Education and certification all in 1 year, so that's what I'm doing. And I love it. I love the opportunity to be able to go work with students, to be able to share my knowledge, but honestly, to also get the information from them. They have such a fresh perspective on the questions, and they're always asking good questions. They're always keeping you on your toes. You're always busy. It's tremendously rewarding, and to be able to share my passion for my topics, but also to get the fresh feedback from them and what they find interesting, and to have that engagement. It's a dream. It's the best. It's almost like the best part of practicing law, without all the legal paperwork involved.
That's
quite
great.
Honestly.
That's great.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking, you mentioned that some of your legal work touched on that. Share some of how that related.
Absolutely. So, for example, I just finished my student teaching, and I was teaching United States government in addition to economics. I did two sections of economics. And U.S. government, it's a wonderful overlap between my legal experience, because obviously you have to talk about the Constitution, you have to talk about various legal cases, you have to make students feel comfortable that this is their country and they have the right to ask questions and to be engaged and to understand their rights and their liberties and all the different facets of that. So the legal career has definitely been a major help and impetus behind that. But also, quite honestly, even before I decided to become a teacher and make this transition, my legal career was invaluable for that road. I had been working predominantly with focusing on people of less advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, indigent clients, people who had some real difficulties in school, and I just got to see, the trials that they faced, the difficulties they faced, as far as trying to get a fair shake in the legal system, as far as getting a fair shake in the education system, and what a huge disadvantage having a poor education system has for them for their entire lives. And I wanted to be a much more proactive part of that and to switch careers, and it definitely made me interested in getting into this area.
Is there a subspecialty within teaching that you're focused on?
Yes, so for the program I'm in, I'm getting certified to teach between 7th and 12th grades. So secondary school, I'll be qualified to teach. And of course, in Pennsylvania, you have to pass something called the praxis so that you can teach a particular subject. So I'm happy to say that I just passed the praxis in social studies, the top 15%, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So I'll be able to teach high school social studies. That means anything from economics to geography to history to U.S. government, all of that. And then I've also passed the praxis in English, so I can teach English in high school as well, whether that's reading, literature, composition, any of that area. So I'm very, very excited to focus on those topics.
Susan, tell me about your family.
Certainly. So as you mentioned in the beginning, I am the proud mother of two children. My daughter Yulia, who's 6 years old, and she goes to Indian Lane, and then my son Mark, who is 4 years old, and he goes to Elwyn Development Center. And then the rock of my family would be my husband, Andrey. Andrey and I have been married. We just celebrated our 11th anniversary, so it's been a tremendous 11 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Andrey is, he's a software engineer. He works for Capital One, and he is a refugee, actually. He came from Donetsk, which is a very big city that's been in the news quite a bit. It's on the eastern part of Ukraine. It's where there's the major insurgency fighting going on between Ukraine and Russia. And he came over to this country when he was a high school student because of, my husband is Jewish, so he faced a lot of discrimination, a lot of anti-Semitism over there. So he and his parents came over, and his older sister. And they're the American dream. They're what you aspire for. His mother is, my mother-in-law, Dina, is an electrical engineer. My father-in-law, Leo, is a mechanical engineer. And they came to this country and they had to learn English. They had to take pizza delivery jobs. They had to do what they could to make ends meet. And my husband, on his own initiative, became a United States citizen and worked hard to do that. And I'm so grateful that they came to this country and that they have really embraced everything and worked so very hard. And I aspire to be like, they're my role models. I aspire to be like them and to do what I can.
You are running for school board director. Why do you want to run?
I want to run, and that's an excellent question. I want to run for a number of reasons. One, I have what you would consider skin in the game. I am a mother of 2 children, one whom is going to public school and another who will as soon as he's old enough. I'm a homeowner in the area, so I also feel the direct impact of a solid, excellent education system in our area. But also, I, as you mentioned, am a trained attorney and I'm going to be a trained teacher. And so I have the unique perspective of understanding the legal and the educational ramifications of whenever there's a school board decision, and recognizing all those different facets and how that can impact people, legal side, education side, home ownership side, parent side, all those aspects to it. And I think that macro level, that overall expertise is really important on the school board. And to have that kind of background, it's different. It would be value added. I think I would have a lot to contribute, and I would relish the opportunity to represent my fellow parents, homeowners, but also to help represent when it comes to having a broader understanding of the issues and the concerns and help make some policy changes that would be helpful to us.
And when did you become interested?
In running for school board?
Yes.
I've thought about it for quite some time. It's been in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to make sure that, I want to make sure I have even more experience, that I really will be able to be in a place that I can deliver 110% effort. I think whenever you take on an opportunity, you need to make sure you're truly committed and that you really can give the time, effort, energy, and focus that requires. Interestingly enough, I went to Howard Law School, which is an historically black college, but one of its big mantras is that a lawyer is either a social engineer or it's a parasite on society. And I take that mantra very seriously, and I would think this is an opportunity for me to put into play that feeling of social engineering and social justice and help.
Is that written down somewhere, or is that?
It's one of the things that it is written down, and it also was Charles Hamilton Houston, who was one of the major players and founders behind Howard. He and one of the major deans. He was also a mentor to Justice Thurgood Marshall, who of course went on to argue Brown v. Board and become the first African American justice. That was his saying. And so it's one of those things that is just inculcated to every Howard Law bison, that you will contribute and you will be a social engineer or you're a waste when it comes to that.
So going to Howard, then you have a perspective of what it is to be a minority in a social environment.
I do. I mean, I want to caution, of course, that obviously, it's a small period of time. So I would never say that I
3 years.
It is 3 years of time. But I would never want to say that I have the same experience that, of course, an African American person experiences day in, day out in our country. But that said, it was one of the reasons why I chose Howard, because I think it's incredibly important to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, to have a good perspective of what life is like, what it can be like when you're a minority. And I certainly have experienced that as the only female in a number of opportunities and positions, but this was my chance as well to be a racial minority and to have a tiny taste of what people might face day in and day out.
How did that help you grow? How did that change or influence your perspective?
I can't speak highly enough of Howard Law. It was without a doubt, even though I'm changing careers, it was without a doubt one of the best decisions of my life. I have nothing but love for Howard. And I would highly recommend anybody who has any opportunity to have a similar experience to do so.
Before we go on, you say historically black. What is the ratio of African American to other makeups?
I would say, and I don't have the exact figures here, but I would say that it's about 95% African American. You are noticeable if you are not African American. But I had the best experience. It was a tremendously growing. People were very giving, very welcoming. It was eye-opening on what camaraderie can be. Everybody collaborate together, because the thought behind Howard Law is that if we all work together, we will improve society. And we all come from different backgrounds and areas of expertise, but if we all pitch in, we can do it. And I took that as compared to many people when they go to law school, they think of it as a very competitive environment. And Howard is very different. And it's much more about let's collaborate, let's work together, because we will improve society when we leave. So it's a tremendous experience. It is also, like I say, going back to the composition, it taught me quite a bit, honestly, about other white people, because whenever people wanted to know where I went to law school, they could not believe that I went to Howard Law. And it was one of those questions that mostly people who were white, who were older and white, they just couldn't get over that. And they would ask questions such as, we didn't know that Howard accepted white people. Yes, they do. That's not been a problem, that African Americans have been very accepting of white people. It's been in other schools the
inverse.
Exactly. So it was very eye-opening from that experience. Seeing that, unfortunately, not every white person, obviously, but unfortunately, there's a group that they would see me and assume, oh, I must agree with them, and would feel comfortable sharing some of their more racist thoughts because they felt that I was comfortable, they could ask me these questions. So it was interesting.
Sure. Sounds very interesting. I looked at your website and I found something that I want to share with our audience.
Hello, my name is Susan Henderson Utis, and I'm running for Rose Tree Media School Board. I'm running because I am truly committed to Rose Tree Media. I love it here. My children are going to school in the public school system here. I'm a homeowner, and I believe that we can make our community even better if we have an open, transparent, and respectful school board. One that really is open to communication and questions and feedback and wants to be responsive. And I feel like that's missing right now, and we need that. We need that open dialogue and exchange. We have a lot of great things going for Rose Tree Media School Board right now, and I want to praise that. But my concern is we have a $9.5 million budget gap. And that didn't happen overnight. That takes a long time. And I think our school board was negligent in communicating that in a timely manner, in getting proper resident feedback, and we need to have that communication and dialogue. I'm also concerned because we've had a bit of groupthink. We had them approve an easement 600 feet behind Glenwood Elementary School that allows Sunoco to build a pipeline there, but they didn't do their due diligence before. Only now are they investigating the dangers and concerns. And really, you need that kind of investigation done before you vote on something. So I feel very strongly that we need a fresh voice. We need somebody who's willing to really examine the issues and do their due diligence, to collaborate, and to help represent all the people of Rose Tree Media. And I would be honored to do that. My name is Susan Henderson Utis, and I am running for Rose Tree Media School Director. And I would thank you very much for your vote.
Thank you for allowing us to share that. Share with our listeners the value of doing a video as a candidate.
I'm so glad you asked. I can't speak highly enough about doing a video like this. As we all know, in this day and age, it's very difficult to reach out and meet with all the voters, to speak with them individually, and to have that sort of personal connection. So the opportunity to create a video like this, where at least everybody can have a better feel for where you stand as a candidate, for where your personality is, what your promises are, what your platform is, it's huge. it's huge to be able to leave that kind of personal impression. And one of the areas that I feel very strongly about is that candidates need to be more accessible, and politicians in general need to be more accessible, more transparent, more open. And so to create that video where I can say, hey, these are the things I stand for. These are my issues, these are my concerns, and I want you to hold me accountable to that. I want the voters to see me and to say things down the way if they feel it's not gone for what I've promised, if I'm not delivering, that they have that chance to hold me accountable. I think that's very important. And I think it also, for lack of a better expression, it puts your money where your mouth is. It's one thing to say, I want to be transparent and accessible. It's another thing to do a video like this where people can get a real feel for where you stand and what you want to accomplish, and to have that accountability. It's also great too because, like I said, you just can't make a personal connection with everybody as much as you want to. The districts are too big, there's so many people. So this is a great chance when I'm out knocking on doors, for example, most people aren't home. So I can put something like this on my literature, leave my literature, and people can come and check that out later on and to get a feel for who I am as a person, as a candidate. So it's a great chance for literature, it's a great chance to get the message out there, it's a great chance for putting on your social media and to sharing with other individuals, and just for people to get that feel that they know you more and have an idea where you're coming from, and then are more likely to reach out with questions, concerns, comments, and to have that kind of exchange. I think it's huge. Also, my fellow school board running mates are as well. And so our goal is to have everybody, so we can have their information there and people can visit. Even if we don't see them at their home, when we leave that literature, they have that opportunity to see that video. Our goal is to have everybody in the committee to have their own, who's running, to have their own video. And we're posting that as well to the committee's website. So that way, if you're interested in any candidate, whether it's, for example, school board or Middletown Township Council or even magistrate judge, you can click on our website and you can see that video. And especially because it's so difficult many times to get information about local candidates, this is one great opportunity to do that and to really get a much better feel for where someone stands.
My understanding is one of the most common complaints, they cannot get enough information about local candidates.
I think that's, from my own personal experience as a voter, I think that's exactly right. And I've had many people come up to me, even since I've started this campaign, to say that it's so difficult to get this information, to even know who's running, let alone to get information about who's running. And as we know, local office matters. Those positions really make a day-to-day impact on our lives. So, thankfully with today's technology, it's much more possible, and I think should be something every candidate should do to get their word out and their message out.
How do you publicize the video after you created it?
That is actually surprisingly easy, again, thanks to social media and technology. It's huge. One thing I'm going to ask for everybody who has seen the video, who has any interest in my candidacy, to please like and share my video. Because we all rely on that. All of my fellow candidates and I, we rely on word of mouth, we rely on sharing on social media. So we do have, as you mentioned, Mid-County Democrats does have a website, and of course we put all of our videos on there. But we also, each candidate has its own, their own Facebook page. I do as well for my candidacy. I've also got, of course, a LinkedIn page and other social media sites. But the biggest thing is that we share as much as we can on social media and try to get that information out there and share with our friends and colleagues and ask them to do the same. Because the more people we reach, the more people who can make a decision then based on that of, oh, I like this candidate, or I don't, or I've got questions or concerns, and they can make that educated follow-up. So sharing is key.
What issues are involved in this school board race?
One big issue would be that we have a $9.5 million budget gap. It's a big budget gap. And those kinds of things, they don't happen overnight.
I was going to say, how did that happen?
It's right. It's one of those things that it happens, and it takes years of, dare I say, almost effort to have that kind of gap. And so,
does the public know how that happened?
Well, and that's a great question. So there's a couple different things I want to say on that. One, the school board kept a very low profile about it until the beginning of this academic year. And then they mentioned, oh, we have a budget gap, and all of a sudden it became a $9.5 million budget gap. And then it wasn't until late February that they even wanted to hold some community forums to discuss this. And now they're going to come out with an actual budget. So it was, even when they did the community forums, it was, as the facilitator who was hired to do it said, he mentioned to another parent there, it was just too little too late. You just can't spring this kind of gap on the public and let them know then. So there's a few different things as far as how this gap was created. The biggest is that for years the school board has been borrowing from what they call the general fund. They've been hesitant to cut programs, which of course I can understand, but they've been borrowing more and more from the general fund without really cluing in the public about what that means. And they realized all of a sudden they couldn't borrow anymore, because if you get below a certain threshold, the state penalizes you.
The budget gap made up?
Well,
raising taxes,
that's their plan, is to raise the taxes. So as soon as I know more, I'll be sure to share with everybody else.
Are there any other issues involved in the campaign?
Yes, one other big issue that really touches on a number of residents would be the pipeline, the Mariner East 2 pipeline. And the school board does have a small role to play in that. They did approve an easement 650 feet behind Glenwood Elementary School, allowing access to Sunoco so that they could make and build this pipeline. And the major concern about this is that there's a couple of concerns, quite honestly. One, the school board approved this, and only now they're looking into the safety concerns and what exactly this means. This pipeline is, it's a very different type of pipeline. I have a natural gas pipeline behind my house. One of the reasons why I bought the house is because I knew the pipeline was there, and because therefore the odds are I would be able to have my woods and forest remain. So I'm not anti-pipeline. But this pipeline is very different. It contains butane, ethane. It's very flammable, very explosive. It's odorless. It's the kind of thing that it's extremely dangerous. It's a very different thing than something you would think of as far as gas for cooking. And all the pipeline materials, it's actually going to be taken over to Scotland because they're not allowed to get this information, this material otherwise. So it's a very different type of procedure. The problem is, like I said, going back to the school board, is they approved this easement 650 feet behind Glenwood Elementary School. And they approved it first, and only now we're asking questions about, well, what does this mean if there's a problem with the pipeline, and what does this mean as far as evacuation and students and homeowners, and only now we're looking into it. And it's one thing, it's the nature of public service. If you thoroughly examine a situation and you've come to a controversial decision, but you've examined it and you vote on it, okay, we can't agree on every decision. But it's very, very different when you vote on something and then begin to ask questions. It's too late. That's a problem. The other part I would say too is that with this pipeline, forgetting the danger, forgetting the devaluation of homes and whatnot in the neighborhood, is that the school board accepted the very first offer Sunoco gave. Sunoco gave them $50,000 for this easement. And they didn't negotiate. They didn't try to get more. They didn't try to, just from a fiscally responsible standpoint, you should negotiate.
Certainly. And
that's a problem, again, is that they just took the money and lost that position of power.
Certainly. Any other important issues that you want to discuss?
Well, I think it sort of ties in with the budget and with the pipeline. But I think the overarching issue, quite honestly, would be transparency and accountability. Politicians throw out those terms all the time, right? But they're so important. Our public servants are there for us. And therefore, we should be able to speak with them. They should be able to be accountable to us. We should understand what's going on. We as residents and homeowners and parents, we have the right to understand what's going on with our school board and to have that dialogue and communication. And right now, it is very difficult, and needlessly so. So, for example, our school board is one of the few in the entire state of Pennsylvania, let alone the country, that does not televise their meetings. There's no public access. Almost anywhere else you go to in Pennsylvania and the United States, you find a public access channel and you can see recordings of school board meetings. Can't do that here. Now,
is that a conscious decision? Is that a policy decision? Do you know?
It's not a policy decision. It's one of those things that people have brought up repeatedly, and we keep getting told, oh, we'll look into it. But it's been years. There's been plenty of opportunity to look into it. We also get a lot of, well, there's money concerns. Well, okay, let's assume that for a second. You've got other school districts like Chichester, right? Chichester is a much poorer school district, right? And they have actual web recordings of every school board meeting. It's easy to find. Their website is very easy to navigate. It's recorded, it's transparent, and it's accessible. Any person who pays taxes in Rose Tree Media has the right to have input in their school board meetings. Also accessibility, that people can find this information and it's meant to be found.
So Susan, the issues are the budget gap, the easement, and transparency, and how the current school board administration falls short. What would you do if you were elected with those three issues?
I'm so glad you asked me that. So I think there are some very easy, quick fixes right off the bat. One would be we need an easy to navigate, useful website. In this day and age, it's 2017, there's just no excuse. We need to be able to have on this website all of our video recordings of the school board meetings, so that people who aren't able to attend those meetings can access them, can see them. We need everything to be navigable, so they can quickly see, oh, okay, here's the bio of a school board person, here's how you reach that person, here are the minute meetings, here's the agenda, here's the next meeting, and this is how the budget is going. They can be able to access all of that, an explanation. So that's one quick fix. We definitely need a website that covers all that. We need to make sure also, like I said, that our meetings are recorded and available to the public. Not just recorded and locked in a vault somewhere in school board buildings, available. And again, whether it's on the website or that's going to be on public access, we need it available for people. So that's something I feel very strongly about. And that would also really help care a lot when it comes to the pipeline and when it comes to the budget gap. Because if we're able to communicate much more readily with residents and get that dialogue throughout the entire process, then we don't have to wait until February of one year to all of a sudden have these big forums where we have to hash out a giant budget gap. This will be something that's a constant communication.
You would have caught it sooner.
Absolutely. We would have caught it sooner. We would have had community engagement a lot sooner. We would have had a much bigger understanding between residents. And residents have some great ideas. The school board doesn't have to solve everything on its own. If we have resident input and feedback, we can get some much better ideas and solutions. And that's what it's all about. So if we have that kind of transparency and engagement and have that real, genuine open dialogue, I'm committed to, I think that will solve a lot of problems. And last but not least, I think, is to also change the mindset, and I'm committed to this as well, in that we need to go back on the school board and think we need to examine a situation first, do our research, do our due diligence, and then vote. That we shouldn't, the school board shouldn't feel the pressure to quickly vote and then think, oh, there's a problem. So I think that's part of a mindset as well, is that we need to have that comfort with engagement and discussion and sometimes disagreement on a school board. It's okay to disagree with your fellow school board mates and to be able to have that conversation. So I'm committed to that as well. A civil and respectful dialogue, I'm a big believer in that, and I want to be very clear. But genuine engagement, genuine research, and real, genuine transparency and accountability. And I'm committed to all of those.
Susan, if you're trapped in an elevator and you only had 20 to 25 seconds to tell about your candidacy, what would you say?
Okay. So what I would say is that I am a trained attorney. I am also getting my master's of education. I am experienced in the legal aspects as well as the educational aspects when it comes to school board decisions. I am dedicated to the children and families of Rose Tree Media. I have children going to the public school system, and I'm a homeowner here. And I feel passionately that we together can make our school board even better, and that the people of Rose Tree Media deserve a member of the board who is accountable to them, who is respectful of them, who understands that they deserve dignity, and someone who will listen to them, and who is willing to go out there and fight the good fight and to make sure that their voices are heard.
Well, Susan, that's all we have time for today. And again, forgive me for not extending my hand for a handshake, but I do want to thank you for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us here today. I am Larry DeMarco, your host with Delaware County Political News. We are signing off. See you next time.